Hello and welcome to the Small Business University. My name is Kelly Leonard and I am the CEO of Taylor Leonard Corporation. Thank you for joining us today. In our studio we have a group of amazing small business owners, entrepreneurs, and business leaders that are here to get some amazing content that's going to be delivered by a gentleman whom I've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many moons now, and who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And so without further ado, I'd like to bring to the front Mr. Jeff Miller with JM Consulting.
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. So an interesting thing happened on the way to a Labor Day weekend barbecue this past weekend. My beautiful bride of 37 years decided that she had no longer any use for her appendix. So this was really interesting. Everything's fine. Surgery was on Sunday. She's home. No issues. But how ironic that here I am preparing a talk on time management and life shows up. There's a great expression in Yiddish that my mom used to say, but I'll do it in English, that basically says, man plans and God laughs, right? Having said that, we still need to plan. I think of all of the challenges that we face as small business owners, certainly time is one of the major ones, if not the major one. We only have 24 hours and we can't extend it beyond that. So what I'm hoping to do today, this morning with you all, is really to kind of give you some content on time management, some tips, introduce you to something that's very counterintuitive. It's a system of time management that I use. I've got a coach, Mark Richardson, who's a nationally known speaker and author in the construction industry. And he introduced this to me about a year ago. I've got a full slate of clients. I sit on two boards of two boards. I do some pro bono work, and I'm also involved with Manna Food on a certain initiative that we're launching. And I'm able to get all of this done because of this system. I'm also going to challenge you on a paradigm shift, if you will. Time is as serious a problem as it is, we don't take it seriously. And what I mean by that is it seems that we're willing to waste 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of time during the course of a day. Time is money, and that's Ben Franklin said that. And it's an interesting concept because when you connect something other than just time, which is sort of this linear concept, but if you attach a meaning to it, we begin to view it a little bit differently. So some people are able to manage their time thinking about time as money. I would challenge you to think about time as self. So instead of time management, self-management. And what I mean by that is we may be willing to give up 5 or 10 or 15 minutes a day. That might add up to 5 hours a week, let's say, which is 20 hours a month, or what somebody else can do the math for me. But when you multiply this out, and then multiply that annual number by 20 or 25 years, are you willing to waste 4 or 5 or 8 months of yourself? And when you think about it in those terms, you take it more seriously. The challenge that we have is to keep that front and center, because it's easy to let go of that. This is a true story. Back in April of 2012 or 13, I was doing a planning session, an all-day planning session. It was in April, and I was talking about time management at one point. And at that very same time, a very, very good friend of ours was literally dying of brain cancer. And he passed away 2 or 3 days after that. And again, I don't bring that up to bring up something bad. I bring it up as how do we keep that front and center? And how do we hold on to that and not waste ourselves. The fun part of this is the question, if you were able to get 2 or 3 hours more a week, what would that mean? How would you use it? How would it manifest itself in your life and in your businesses? Time with family, more time being efficient, greater profitability, more time getting to know your employees. It's any number of these things. And the flip side, of course, is what's the cost of inefficiency and what's the cost of mismanaging your time in terms of stress, in terms of not seeing family, in terms of profitability. So those are the flip sides. And what I always say to people is, we've got a choice, and however you answer the question is usually the right answer. So let's talk a little bit about feeling, right? I think sometimes we place too much emphasis on logic. But when I think about time management, I think about how am I going to feel at the end of the day? Am I going to feel fulfilled? Am I going to feel accomplished? Or am I going to feel frustrated? And I think if you start viewing time management in that way, what happens is, again, you keep front and center that question of self. Am I willing to waste self? There's some interesting time management tips that some of which we know of. One is the Parkinson theory. Civil Parkinson was a British naval historian who wrote a lot extensively on time management, and actually one of his quotes is there. And essentially what that quote says is, time, like nature, abhors a void, and it will fill that. So if you give yourself 2 hours for a 1 hour task, guess how long it's going to take you? And if you assign yourself a task without a time frame, guaranteed it's going to take you longer than it would have had you put it into a time frame. So that concept of being accurate in how you're assigning your time, and it's fine to, if you assign an hour and it takes you 2 hours, well, that's fine. The learning there is that next time for that task, assign it 2 hours, don't assign it 1 hour. And vice versa is true as well. Working with a default calendar certainly is important, and blocking out chunks of time. Being efficient, having a clock in your room or in your office or on your desk can be really, really helpful. Leveraging your time. If you're out and about on the road, plan your stops accordingly. And if you're going to pick up your cleaners and it's on the way to a client, well, then that's fine, but don't go out of your way to do that. So leveraging your time that way is also a very strong way of taking control. And I keep on coming back to the concept of taking control because that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking control of your time and therefore of your life, both in business and obviously personal as well. And it's interesting, this time management system that I'll introduce to you in just a bit here, it's very much a combination of personal and business. So during the course of my day, I don't differentiate. If there are things that I need to get done, whether it's a doctor's appointment, getting a haircut, whatever it might be, that goes into my daily task. So I'm not differentiating. Same thing if I want to call one of our girls. As silly as it sounds, I'll put it on my list, and you'll understand why in a moment. Buying flowers for Betsy, who's laid up with an appendix that's no longer there. It's on my list, and it's important. I come back to that concept of how does it make me feel at the end of the day. So with that, you've got in your packet, and I appreciate those that didn't rush ahead on it. It's much appreciated. I think it was Norman Vincent Peale who basically said, plan your work and then work the plan. Very, very, very simple concept. And now I'm going to introduce to you this time mastery, what I call. Put that down there. So there's a very visual element to this, and you've got it in the packet. So let's just go step by step with it. The process is I find a quiet place, and I do it first thing in the morning before I do anything else. I go down, I open up all my calendars, I look at my to-do list from yesterday, and then I start just doing what we call a brain dump. Just putting down everything that I need to do during the course of that day. I'll always, because of the nature of my business, I'll always start with client appointments. And then any other networking appointments or coffees that I have. And then there's the miscellaneous to-dos. Phone calls, emails, summing up client meetings, those types of things. So I do this brain dump, and then I get up and I take a shower. I don't do anything else with this list at that point. I come back down, and I start looking at the list and really strategizing. And what I mean by strategizing, next to each task, I'm estimating how long is it going to take me. Is it 60 minutes? Is it 90 minutes? Is it 2 hours? Is it 5 minutes? And I start listing the times down. And I think it'll be easier now if you turn to this page, your first handwritten page. And I'm down and dirty with this stuff. Computers are great. Pen and pencil and paper to me it works for me. So if you look, this was yesterday's day. And the theme of the day, because there's a theme, it was called Be Prepared. Listed all of my appointments and my tasks. Some of them are personal. I list my walk. I walk every day. It goes onto this list. If you flip the page, now you see there's more stuff. Okay? You see where I've estimated the time, and I've added the time up, and I divide that by 60. And in this instance, I had a 9.25 hour day yesterday of work. Now at that point, sometimes that number could be 7, sometimes that number could be 13. If it's 13, I need to start looking at this list and saying something's got to change because I'm not working a 13-hour day today, or I am, but I'm prepared for it. So from the very beginning, you're beginning to say, okay, what do I want to accomplish with this meeting? Okay, this was going to be a coffee. Maybe we can make it a 15-minute phone call instead and pick up some time that way. I mentioned that this system is completely, for me, completely counterintuitive. It took me about 9 months to feel really comfortable with it. And it's over the last 3 months that I've really begun to master it. There is no priority to this list. Nothing is prioritized. If you see next to each appointment, there's a letter. That has nothing to do with a priority. That has to do with where am I going to plot it, if you turn over, on my timeline. So I create a timeline. And yesterday, the day started at 6, and it ended at 6, which is more than 9.5 hours, or not the 9-hour mark, but that's because there were some other things that were coming up. And that's why I always will keep in mind, okay, if it's a 9-hour day, that means it could be a 10-hour day because of the stuff that happens, because stuff always happens. And I blocked it off in time segments. So from 6 to 9, I was doing G and F work. And that was doing some rescheduling, some emails. You can see the first thing I'll do is the squiggly mark. I'm blocking off my appointments. That's the first thing I do. So from 9:30 to 10:30, that was an appointment, client J and K. From 12:30 to 2, Bird and Bird, a client. So that's B. And keep on going down. 3 to 4 was a client, and then 4 to 5 was a client call as well. So that's the first thing that I do. And then I just fill in with the rest. And I just plan accordingly. If you turn to the very last page, you'll see when this is circled on this side of the margin, it means I got it done. I think on this day, if I'm not mistaken, there was one thing that didn't get done. One phone call that didn't get done. Now, remember I talked about coming back down and strategizing over the list and completing that brain dump? So when I did that, I realized that I needed to resend somebody something, and I needed to call Mike about some assessments that I work with. The only thing that I didn't do was call Mike yesterday. And I can tell you that this is representative of almost every day. There's almost never a day where I don't get done 90 to 95% of what I have to get done. The system works, but it takes a lot of discipline. And there's a lot of frustration with it initially. I can tell you that. I've been there, I've done that. And I've actually introduced this to other clients of mine, J&K actually, and we struggled with it, but 4 or 5 months into it, her days are much more efficient, much more productive, and therefore that reflects itself obviously in the bottom line. Some of the things to look out for if you're going to think about employing this is you've got to do it at least for 30 days straight. It's at 28 days to form a habit or break a habit, but so 30 days straight. Do not jam 12 hours of work into a 9-hour day. You won't get it done. Strategizing and doing the brain dump is actually, for me, that was one of the hardest things to do with consistency, was really being able to get out everything that I needed to get done that day. And there are times to this very day that, as you can see from the bottom here, I don't believe in beating myself up. I just make a line and put down some other things that I've thought of that I need to get done. The key to this working is making sure that it's with you at all times. Okay? And you need to check it once an hour. I have this in my car or it's on my desk. In fact, here's the real deal. This is today. What's also cool about this is as you accumulate your days and then your notebooks, it's fun to look through this once a month of past ones and say, you know what? I forgot I was going to give you a call. And it's a reminder. So this is complete control, unless your wife has appendicitis. But all we can do is plan what we can plan. We can't deal with the unforeseen, but we can be prepared to deal with it when it comes up. I was going to spend Sunday working on some of this. Obviously, I didn't. But I spent some part of Monday on it, and you just find ways to maneuver it. When you're operating in panic mode and you feel paralyzed by the pressure of time, the reality of time, it's much more difficult to be effective, productive, profitable. When you're in control of your time, then it's just bring it on. We'll figure out how to do it, just bring it on. Kelly just went like this to me. So I've got just a couple of more minutes. I want to leave you with what is one of my favorite quotes, because I think it speaks to the heart of what small business owners can do. And by the way, that's my passion in life. My wife, my 2 daughters, baseball, and small business. My dad was a retailer in Lower Manhattan, and my mom was a caterer. So it's always been what's motivated me. But Warren Buffett, who we all know who Warren Buffett is, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, you don't need to be extraordinary to accomplish extraordinary results. It's a revolutionary thought. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to have a plan, work the plan, and adjust accordingly. And with that, I'm happy to open it up for questions.
morning, Jeff.
Good morning,
Leonard,
Jerome.
Taylor Leonard Corporation. I love the simplicity of what you shared with us. My question is, we've heard so many times that it's highly effective to go for the low-hanging fruit and try to accomplish some things that are easy. What are your thoughts on that mindset versus more important, more difficult, perhaps tasks that we don't feel quite comfortable because perhaps there's conflict, perhaps we don't have all of that clarity. You know, how do you balance between the low-hanging fruit and things that are difficult to accomplish?
A great question. Thanks, Jerome. So the low-hanging fruit, if we're talking about like low-hanging fruit in terms of customers that are there just to be taken, I'm all for it. I think it's great. Eat That Frog. Anybody read that book, Eat That Frog? So you eat the biggest and ugliest frog first thing in the morning. And then the rest of the day is a pleasure. Because if you don't eat it and you're waiting for the end of the day, boy, that frog's going to be sitting on your shoulder. Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. So in all seriousness, my feeling is if time allows for it, always do the most difficult thing first thing in the morning. Seriously, it makes for a better day.
Excellent.
More peaceful.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Sure.
Good morning, Heather Cox, Mighty Little Web Shop. Where do you store ideas sort of in a bullpen? Like ideas that you can't get to today or this week, but you don't want to forget about?
Great question. I actually have an inbox that's for ideas.
Physical?
Yeah, it's physical. So I'll write them out. It could be it could be a project that I want to work on down the road, or it could just be something that comes to mind. It could be a quotation that I come across that says, I'll be able to use this somewhere. So I have this inbox, and it just accumulates. And once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending, once a month, I'll just look through it. And if I'm facing something, like for instance, coming to, for preparing for this, I looked through it. I wanted to dig up some quotes that I figured I must have in there. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. Physical, I like that.
Hi, Sharon Gabinski, Santa's Postal and Company.
Good morning.
What is your theory on email? I've read different things that say do it, constantly, set specific times. I don't know about everybody here, but I mean, mine is well over 100 a day.
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Yeah, it's the bane of our existence in many ways. That and the whole internet phenomena and social media, which is fantastic, but just eats up. It's a black hole. My philosophy on email, and it's the same with voicemail, by the way, is I schedule times to answer and to check. So if you note, when I said about starting my day, I go down there, first thing I do is my brain dump. Then I go take a shower, then I come back, then I work. I don't look at email for the first hour and a half of the day. That's the only part of the day that I can control, because I don't know what happens after that. I think part of the challenge is that we've trained our customers and clients that we need to respond immediately to them. And I think that's something we need to untrain them, if that's the right word. So I think if you check email at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then you check it at 11, and then you check it at 2, and then you check it at the end of the day, it becomes much more manageable. You need to do it with consistency. And with any other rule like that, there's always exceptions. If you know an important email is due, then sure, you can scan it. Just scan the list, see if it's there. But if it's not, then have the discipline. And as I said, I do the same thing with voicemails. I've got clients where we say, look, the voicemail says, I'll be checking voicemail today from 11:30 to 12 and 3 to 4. Please leave a message. If this is important, please ring the receptionist. Now, the receptionist, of course, has a list of the top 10 clients that will get through no matter what time they're calling. So, you need to find the right balance for you in your own business. But I think it goes back to control. Are you controlling your time, or is it controlling you? Are you controlling your email, or is it controlling you? So it's a lot of discipline. And when you're not checking it, shut the dinger off right?
And the pop-up.
Or the pop-up, or whatever jumps up to say, hey, I'm here, look at me right now, because it's the most important thing you're going to see all day.
Right. Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi,
Hi.
My name is Javel Lane from Sinai Consulting. It really resonated with me when you said the target of your list or your day should be how you feel at the end of that. I use Evernote to list all of my tasks for the day, and it's everything that I got to get done today, and I never complete everything on the list. Is there some kind of psychological benefit to seeing everything done at the end of the day?
Oh, I love looking at that at the end of the day. When I circle that last one, it's like, yeah, we can go home,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a glass of wine.
So do you find yourself, if you have a 12-hour day, do you break it down to where you know you can accomplish those tasks in that day?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the whole key. If I can't accomplish that task, I look at it, as I said earlier, and say, okay, can I rearrange this? Instead of meeting for coffee for 60 minutes, can we have a 15-minute conversation and at least get the thing started?
Right.
And if yes, great, and if not, I need to rearrange something else.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Last question.
Liz Wagger, First Financial Group. When you have a large task and you need to break it up, when you know you have a speech and you have to figure out how much time it's going to take, do you try to do it all in a 4-hour chunk? Or how do you break it down over the course of a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Great question. I think it's really, it's a question of and discipline and knowing yourself. If it's a task that has to get done and you can sit for 4 hours to do it, then sure, if it's productive and if there's a reason to do it in one sitting. I think with larger tasks which intimidate most of us, it's divide to multiply. So more often than not, I will take a task and I'll chunk it down into 4 or 5 different parts that I can start implementing and working on, and I'll do it over the course of a day or 2 or a week, depending on what it is. But yeah, that's a good question.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And thank you all.
I'm sure everyone wrote down some nuggets of information, lists, right? Lists are critical to us in time management. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank especially Montgomery Community Media and Mid-Atlantic Federal Credit Union, our sponsor. We look forward to hosting you all again next month. Save the date, October 15th. Is the next date where we'll come together again. Joining us will be the senior director and contracting and procurement specialist from AstraZeneca MedImmune. So for those of you in the healthcare space, or if you have clients in the healthcare space, make sure you're here, because it's all about building relationships, right, when it comes to doing business. And so again, my name is Kelly Leonard. I want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next month here at Small Business University.